Star Citizen's planetary locations are among the most beautiful in the entire industry. And so it should come as little surprise that many citizens are looking forward to calling them home. Hey guys, Morphologist here, and welcome back to another episode of An Architect Reviews. This time we're taking a look at the existing habs of Star Citizen, those that exist on every moon and planet surface that we currently have accessible. I'll take you through their interiors, their exteriors, and peripheral structures, so by the end I can give you a pretty sound conclusion on their successes and failures. So sit back, relax, and if you've enjoyed this video by the end, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Oh, and if you have any questions that you want to ask me live, you can find me over on my Twitch channel Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. CIG's designers have clearly done their research. Their structures are clearly based off of real-world examples such as those found at the Halley 6 Antarctic Research Station by Hugh Broughton Architects. As you can see in this image taken by photographer James Morris, the structures are prefabricated modular units on adjustable struts above the Antarctic ice. Prefabrication allows for the safe construction of these units in a predictable and safe environment where they have materials available. While their distinctive adjustable struts perform two very important functions. The first is to ensure that they can be leveled on a variety of different topographic locations that the researchers might want the outpost placed within. While the second reason, being the most important one, is for them to be raised above the heavy snowfall that Antarctica frequently experiences. This ensures that this outpost, unlike earlier ones, will not be buried completely, trapping the researchers and explorers inside. In fact, Antarctica is so hostile to human life that it's regarded by NASA scientists as the closest thing we have here on Earth to the surface of a place like Mars, and therefore it's used for research to that end. So it makes a lot of sense that CIG would employ these learned strategies for designing habitation units to be deployed on other planetary surfaces, also providing CIG a convenient insular reasoning for why so many outposts and habs share the same architectural typology. They were simply prefabricated and created in order to suit pretty much any environment that the user would throw at them, from extremely hot all the way to extremely cold. But the prefabricated unit is not the only component of these outposts. They still require other items to complete their various missions. And so most outposts have themselves vehicle bays, such as this one marked in blue, solar panels to provide power along with geothermal units, lighting posts, and various other types of habitation units for storage as well as trade. However, as you may have seen already, since many of these units look identical, it may be difficult for users to identify which hab does what. And so designers here utilize what we call in architecture a wayfinding device in the form of a color-coded tower to tell you which location does what. For example, here the orange lets you know that this is a trading hub and this is where you can buy and sell items at the outpost. For the mining module, you can tell that apart by looking for the communications array and additional storage on the roof. And finally, if you wanted to find the actual habitation units, those typically have bare roofs with nothing on them. But here I'm already hinting at a bit of an issue. All of them look quite similar, and I'm not just talking about within a single outpost. I mean every single outpost looks very similar, because with the exception of a few unique locations that have bespoke configurations, each outpost uses exactly the same models, just in different locations. And so, travelers of Stanton will find themselves faced with nearly identical landing zones regardless of where they go to, with the exception of maybe a few different paint schemes and logos plastered on the side of them. This has the unfortunate net effect of making visiting locations feel less special because each location lacks what we call in architecture placeness. Now, you won't find this word in the typical dictionary because we use it in architecture to describe how a building talks about the culture and people for which it is built. So for example, a lot of buildings built in Japan by Japanese architects look uniquely like Japanese buildings. If you put them elsewhere, it would feel weird and out of place, and an astute eye could point out that that building is one that was designed in the Eastern climate. Prefabricated units by nature can't do this because they're using materials used from elsewhere. Something that has placeness might use materials from the surrounding area. So for example, here on Hurston, where the earth is very red, you might see a lot of red brick in the design, giving you a sense that it is of the environment that it inhabits. This is, at least in one way, what architects theorize in academia to be what creates a building's unique feeling, what creates a special event of visiting a location. Despite this major shortcoming, they do have successes in other areas, specifically with detailing, through their labeling, use of color coding, and even the strut idea borrowed from the real-world examples I outlined earlier in the video. This at least makes them a very believable type of architecture that you would find in some future version of humanity that has begun to explore, or has at least explored the stars for some time. One detail that could use improvement, however, are the placement of the solar arrays as well as their design. Regardless of advancements in solar cell power efficiency, the orientation of a panel would still be relevant even many hundreds of years from now, and so they should likely be either oriented towards the sun in a fixed manner, or should be on an armature that can change its orientation in accordance with the sun's position in order to maximize the amount of power they're able to collect. But regardless of whether or not these are fixed arrays, the current models are too low to the ground, in my opinion, to induce the proper amount of airflow beneath them to keep them cool and thus maximize efficiency. Now, I know this is nitpicking, but many of you may be interested in solar panel arrays, and so I think that this could provide some information for those of you considering installing them on your own home. But what about the interiors of these outposts? Much like our Antarctic examples, the units here are raised off the ground and have entrances that are lifted to allow for a variety of topographic surfaces and conditions. The doors, however, have a bit of an issue in that they don't have windows to check the safety of the environment outside, but we'll chalk that up to having sensors available to let occupants know. Just beyond that is what I would describe as a preparation foyer where occupants can switch out from their regular gear to environmental suits for harsher environments that outposts may be placed within. In the center of that, though, is a utility power unit, which I find to be a nice little detail that I hope has some use going into the future. Moving beyond the foyer, we find ourselves in a modestly sized single-room habitation area. This is complete with its own kitchen, communal eating area, sleeping area, and work desks. Immediately across from the entrance, though, you find yourself in the kitchen, which is considered in some cultures taboo. However, this is not designed for the Taiwanese market, and so I suspect that this is not really an important consideration. The kitchen area, though, looks well equipped, with plenty of area for preparation so that multiple crew members can be preparing food simultaneously when going out for their shift. Just a few steps away, though, is the communal eating area, which doesn't have enough seats for the full crew complement of 6, but I suspect that not everybody would be eating at once because some people would be on their work shift, so that's understandable. Just across from the communal eating area, we find ourselves in the work and sleep space for the crew who will be manning this outpost. This area I find to be unfortunately a little problematic. Although the lighting is a comfortable 3000 to 2800 K, which is what I would recommend for a living space, the upper bunks look to be very uncomfortable. This bunk has absolutely no privacy from the surrounding area, which means that any occupant that is on their sleep shift would be bothered by anybody turning on the lights, speaking, or even moving around. They would be completely exposed even looking through the windows. The open layout and multitude of hard surfaces also present an issue for acoustics. This is something that's often overlooked by designers working in a digital space because it's not something that you can experience through the medium of a computer. Acoustics are a really important part of comfort in design, and although this is a game space, it's worth bringing up for those of you out there considering designing your own real-world spaces. Carefully consider how many hard surface materials you're using in an environment that you plan to live on. If there are too many hard surfaces, it's likely that that environment will be very noisy, even with very hushed voices speaking. What's worse is that having a lot of hard surfaces doesn't actually help you understand people better. What it does is instead distorts the sound waves in the space to the point where it can be very difficult to understand somebody even if they're within a regular conversation's distance from you. Acoustics are actually such a complex study that there is an entire field of engineering dedicated to its study called acoustical engineering, who will most certainly be used as consultants on projects where acoustic goals are part of the program, such as in movie theaters, symphony halls, and performing arts centers. One last nitpick would be the windows. I always prefer to put a window across from an entrance to extend the space to the exterior and remind people of the environment in which the building inhabits. But windows aren't always the most important thing that a design needs to call attention to, such as here in one of the more unique outposts that I had the pleasure of visiting. Here instead, the entrance frames the suit lockers, allowing occupants to understand where they are to put their suits when they enter, without having to create signage. The trading module too does this by placing the trading console directly across from the entrance. Though in this case, I think that this design could be improved by placing the counter with its window directly across from the entrance and beside the Kovalex shipping box, and also beside the trading console, so that everything is clearly framed when entering the space so you know where to go. But again, I think this is a bit of nitpicking because ultimately it's a very small space and these individual programmatic elements are easy to spot once you know what you're looking for. The current locations in Star Citizen's Stanton system are gorgeous, and I can't wait, personally, to find a place among them to call my own home. But the current outposts that we have can use improvement. They require more variation so that I understand what part of the Stanton system that I'm in. Perhaps Hurston would have its own unique architectural style for its outposts so that I know that I'm on Hurston. It would feel more unique and interesting to visit them. But I think that they could also consider more interesting geographic locations to locate these outposts, such as on great vistas overlooking canyons, waterfalls, massive forests, something that really jumps out to the explorer to make them think, wow, this was an incredible experience. But I know they're working on homesteads right now as we speak, and so I'm very excited to see what they come up with and place in-game. I've been Morphologist. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of An Architect Reviews. If you want to see more, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and let me know what you thought down in the comment section below. So until the next episode, I'll see you guys next time.